Assalamu alaikum. In our first chapter, we are talking about the sovereignty of state. And what is sovereignty? What are its kinds? We already discussed, and today we will be discussing about the attributes of sovereignty. What are the qualities and what are the basic features of sovereignty, you can say. The first one is permanence, that sovereignty of state is permanent and it remains in operation as long as state exists. Change in government does not perish sovereignty, and the new government starts exercising it on behalf of state. So when the state is existing, so the sovereignty is existing. So it is permanent. It never changes. Whatever the changes occurs in the government, it does not affect the sovereignty of the state. It remains there as long as the state exists. Then the exclusiveness, the another attribute of sovereignty that make the state supreme over all other institutions within its territorial jurisdiction. Like exclusively the sovereignty is attributed with state. No other institution within state or no external force have any kind of supremacy over the state. Exclusively sovereignty belongs to a state. And by virtue of this sovereignty, it claims unconditional obedience. It is only the state who actually claims unconditional obedience, no other institution. So whatever the other institutions ask for any kind of obedience, it is actually the authority of the state which is given to awarded to that institutions. And state is the sole source of all powers and authority. And it is sovereignty, we would call that it is supreme authority. So definitely whoever holds this supremacy, he is the source of all powers and authority. And universality, number third attribution, that state supreme authority cannot be questioned within its territory, while all individuals and social activities, legally speaking, can be regulated by its laws. So no one can question the supreme authority of a state. Like sometime we might question that why state is so exaggeratedly, uh, applying the laws or making such policies which are hurting or damaging the social liberties of the people. But no one can question that. When state has got the supreme authority, so it's mean that within its territory, its authority cannot be questioned, and states it's the responsibility of the state that all the individuals and the activities within state must be regulated by the laws of the state. And absoluteness, we talked about the two concepts of um, two aspects of sovereignty. One is the internal, the other one is external one. So these are noteworthy because the first one, the state stands paramount over all individuals and over all other associations and enjoy the pivotal of regulating their activities, and none other can put limitation on state authority. So well, when we talk about the internal sovereignty, So the state has complete control, complete supremacy over all individuals and over all institutions or associations. And state enjoys the important role of regulating all the activities, and no institution can put any limitation on state authority. Second, state is free from all external control, so no other factor can intervene in the affairs of a state. Then the indivisibility, that sovereignty of state cannot be divided, as the will of the state is source of all powers. Like you cannot divide the sovereignty in different institutions or different personalities. It will stay with the state, and only the state will enjoy this authority, this supreme authority. And because it is the source of all powers, so when you will divide it in between different organs of the state or between different personalities, so definitely it will create some chaos, and there might be some sort of clash between the sovereign bodies and sovereign institutions. Then inalienability. State cannot depart from its supreme power for the time being of permanently, nor can transfer it to anybody. This, the sovereignty or the supreme power, it is the attribute of a state, and it stays with the state permanently. State cannot transfer it to anybody, neither to any person nor to any institution. It remains with the state. So we cannot, uh, you know, taken away from the state. So sovereignty is the authority of the state. Imprescriptibility, state of sovereignty of state is everlasting, and if state does not exercise its authority in certain spheres of life, it does not deprive it of the legitimate authority to regulate those aspects. The supreme authority is forever, and state sometime it does not exercise in certain spheres of life. So it does not mean that the legitimate authority of the state it vanished or it is over. No, it's not the case. So state on its own, by the will of the state, it has not exercised it, but it is not deprived of the authority. Like we can give the example of that. Like हमारे जो ये जो एरियाज थे, जो एजेंसीज थी, जहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा तालिबान थे, टेररिस्ट थे, वहाँ पे स्टेट की रिट नहीं थी। ठीक है, स्टेट ने अपनी जो अथॉरिटी थी उसको एक्सरसाइज नहीं किया हुआ था। सो दैट्स वाई बहुत सारे लोगों ने वहाँ पे अपना एक होल्ड बना लिया, अपनी तरह की वो उस इलाके को अपने तौर पे कंट्रोल करते थे, अपने उनके अपने लॉज थे अपने। तो वो स्टेट ने अपनी अथॉरिटी को वहाँ पे एक्सरसाइज नहीं किया था, तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि वहाँ पे स्टेट की अथॉरिटी, वो स्टेट वहाँ पे अपनी अथॉरिटी से महरूम हो गई, बल्कि स्टेट चूँकि उसके पास कुछ इतने रिसोर्सेज नहीं थे, और इस वजह से स्टेट ने उसको जानबूझ के इग्नोर किया कि चलें ठीक है, अभी हमारे पास इतने रिसोर्सेज नहीं हैं, तो इसलिए हम ये काम नहीं कर सकते। अगर डेफिनेटली वहाँ पे कुछ करना पड़ेगा तो कुछ हमें बहुत सारे रिसोर्सेज का इस्तेमाल करना पड़ेगा जो भी स्टेट के पास नहीं थे। तो स्टेट ने उनको उन लोगों की जो मर्जी पे छोड़ दिया। लेकिन जब स्टेट ने तो ये देखा कि नहीं, इट्स अ गुड टाइम, वी हैव इनफ रिसोर्सेज, एंड इवन सम फॉरेन जो स्टेट्स थी उन्होंने भी पाकिस्तान को सपोर्ट किया, तो देन पाकिस्तान and the state of Pakistan exercised its sovereignty over that part of the state. तो अगर स्टेट किसी टाइम में अपनी अथॉरिटी का इस्तेमाल किसी खास जगह पे किसी खास स्फीयर ऑफ लाइफ में नहीं करती, तो इसका मतलब कतई ये नहीं है कि स्टेट की वो अथॉरिटी ख़त्म हो गई है। जी, कोई क्वेश्चन? So after attributes, there is Austin's concept of sovereignty. And Austin, who is an English utilitarian and a jurist, he redefined the legal concept of sovereignty, which was upheld by Boudin, Hobbes, and Bentham. So his views are found in his book entitled Lectures on Jurisprudence, published in 1832. He defined sovereignty in these words. So if a determinate human superior, not in the habit of obedience to a like superior, receives habitual obedience from the bulk of a given society, that individual is sovereign in that society, and that society, including that superior, is a society free and independent. If a determinate human, any individual who is superior and who hasn't got the habit to obey others or to obey other like superiors, and he receives habitual obedience from a bulk of citizens, from the majority of citizens, so that individual is sovereign. So it clearly denotes that a sovereign does not obey anyone because he is superior. He is not in a habit of obedience, and he is the superior, so that's why he receives habitual obedience from the society. Like people actually obey it habitually, and that individual is sovereign in that society, and that individual, and it can be an institution in the modern state, in modern systems, modern governments. So that individual is sovereign in that society, and that society, including that superior, is a society free and independent. And that society is free, like free means that no other person outside that particular society can intervene and interfere in the affairs of the state. And that is independent, like they independently can make their decisions, can make laws, can make policies of that. So they can run the affairs of state on their own. So he further writes that every law is made consciously by a lawgiver. So definitely, whenever a law is made, so it has having some objective. Without any objective, there is no lawmaking. So definitely, the law making bodies always make laws with a purpose, with an objective, and it is a conscious effort by the lawgiver, that law always made with an objective. Okay, there are some implications to this view. Three main premises can be drawn from the Austin definition. Number one, that in every state, powers of sovereign are unlimited, absolute, and sovereignty is indivisible and inalienable. This is what we get from the definition of Austin, that power of sovereign are unlimited, absolute, and sovereignty, because an individual who does not obey anyone and he got the absolute power, and the bulk of the people, they are in the habit of obey him. So and his authority is indivisible as well and inalienable, like he does not obey anyone, and like there are other like superiors, they are found in that society, but he does not obey anyone, and his authority and his supreme authority is inalienable. It cannot be taken away from that particular individual or authority. And sovereignty, number two, is the source of an authority, and that it can be clearly located. The repository of this supreme authority can be identified in every society. So whoever is holding the supreme authority, we can clearly locate that who is having the real power. Despite the parliament in Pakistan, we know that who is holding this supreme authority. And the repository of the supreme authority can be identified in every society. Who is having more power, who is the powerful guy, who is the powerful institution, and who is the real power in a state. So we know that. So sovereignty is a source of authority, and we can clearly locate it. Number three is law is the command of sovereign, and its violation is dealt with punishment. All rights and duties are determined by law. So whatever the law is made by the lawgiver or lawmaking body or the sovereign, it is dealt with punishment if violated. So if someone disobeys the law or violates the law, so law is actually the command, and when the command is denied or violated, so it will be dealt with punishment. And all rights and duties are determined by law. So what is my right and what are my duties? So they are clearly located in the law. What is the criticism? There is a critical view on Austin's concept of sovereignty, because Austin said that it is absolute monistic. Monistic means that it is located in a single person, or legal concept is given below in detail. Number one is the limited power. Unlimited authority in Austin's sense is impossible to trace in modern states. So definitely, I told you earlier that absolute sovereignty is not possible in modern state system. From democratic viewpoint, two important repositories that exercise this authority are political and legal sovereign, but none of the two can claim the use of unlimited powers. If there is an individual or there is an institution, both they cannot claim that they are having unlimited powers. So there is always a restriction on their authority, on their power. Number two is location of sovereignty. Austin said that in every society sovereignty can be clearly located, no doubt. This view seems to be valid if applied to British political system, where king in parliament stands supreme. The constitutional validity of laws made by parliament can't be challenged in any court of law, but in federal system no such authority can be located. So wherever there is a monarchy, there is a kingship, so definitely you can clearly locate that person, that this person is having the ultimate authority, the absolute sovereignty. Like in Saudi Arabia, the king Shah Salman, and in UAE, in Qatar, in Bahrain, there are multiple monarchies there. So you can clearly locate that, and whatever the decision will be made by that particular king, that particular individual, it cannot be challenged in any way, in any parliament or any institution. And uh-huh, We already discussed in the kinds of sovereignty that the queen is actually holding a titular sovereignty, like he is only enjoying the title. All other parts, they are they remain with the parliament, with the House of Commons and House of Lords. So the although the authority, the sovereign person is the queen, but its authorities and its powers are not given to him, you can constitutionally, and the parliament is more powerful, and because he is a law-making body in the modern democracies, we can see that the institutions are more powerful than monarchs, the individuals, and the the constitutional validity of laws made by parliament cannot be challenged in any court of law. And in the federal system, like in Pakistan, we do have a federal system, so no such authority can be located. Like maybe provinces are having some powers, like the federation has some powers, and maybe the laws made by the there are certain departments जो जिनका इख्तियार सिर्फ और सिर्फ सूबों को दे दिया गया है कि वो इस पे ही लॉ मेकिंग करेंगे, और जो उसकी डोमेन है फेडरल गवर्नमेंट की, वो सिर्फ उसी पे ही लॉ मेकिंग कर सकती है। तो चूंकि अब जो डिवीजन ऑफ पावर है वो बहुत ज़्यादा है, जो फेडरेशन लेवल पे, चूँकि वो जो स्टेट्स, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में स्टेट्स हैं, तो पाकिस्तान में प्रोविंसेस हैं, तो इनको भी ये इख्तियार है कि वो भी अपने तौर पे कुछ लॉ मेकिंग कर सकते हैं। तो फेडरेशन में ऐसी जो अथॉरिटी है वो क्लियरली आप लोकेट नहीं कर सकते। Is sovereignty indivisible? What Austin said. And Austin's viewpoint, sovereignty cannot be divided. This is what we said in the attributes of sovereignty. लेकिन experts on international law postulates that in protectorates, sovereignty is divided between the dependent government and the foreign custodian government. तो होता ये है कि जो प्रोटेक्टोरेट स्टेट होती है ना, वो बुनियादी तौर पर सोवरेनिटी को कुछ हद तक वो इंजॉय कर रही होती हैं, और कुछ हद तक वो जो फॉरेन कस्टोडियन गवर्नमेंट है वो उसको देख रही होती है। यानी वो स्टेट like it is divided between the dependent government, चूंकि वो डिपेंडेंट होती है, and protectorate state is a state that is controlled and protected by an other. ठीक है। The position or period of office of a protector is defined by the state who is taking care of that state. कि जो भी उसको देख रहा होता है, उसको मैक्टोनिया हो गया, इसके अलावा बेसिकली कोई और छोटी मोटी स्टेट्स हैं जैसे कुर्दिस्तान है। अब प्रोटेक्टेड स्टेट्स हैं जो लाइक उनको खुद भी ऑटोनोमस गवर्नमेंट्स उनकी मौजूद हैं, लेकिन बेसिकली वो जिस इलाके में रह रहे होते हैं, अगर वो इराक में रह रहे हैं तो डेफिनेटली दी इराकी गवर्नमेंट कुछ ना कुछ इख्तियारात उसके पास भी होते हैं, तो वो फॉरेन कस्टोडियन गवर्नमेंट के तौर पे उस सोवरेनिटी को इंजॉय कर रही होती है। एंड प्लूरलिस्टिक अटैक क्या है? वो ये कहते हैं कि बेसिकली द मोनिस्टिक कंसेप्ट ऑफ सोवरेनिटी के whatever it was projected by the Guild Socialist in Britain and Duguid in France, these different schools and various objectives while pleading the case of society at the cost of state. वो कहते हैं ये वन मैन, जो आप कहते हैं ना कि एक ही बंदे के पास ये सारी की सारी अथॉरिटी होती है, ऑस्टिन जो कहते हैं, और होनी भी चाहिए। वो कहते हैं फिर इस तरह से तो डिफरेंट स्कूल और जितने भी स्टेट की कॉस्ट पे होता है कि वो बंदा वो अपने तौर पे जितने भी वो लॉज बना रहा होता है वो सारे के सारे उसकी अपनी मर्जी से होते हैं और डेफिनेटली वो फिर बाकी जो लोगों का जो व्यू है वो तो फिर इग्नोर हो जाता है क्योंकि ये बेसिकली प्लूरलिस्टिक इज एक्चुअली रेफरिंग टू द पॉपुलेशन कि फिर लोगों का क्या होगा लोग कैसे अपने तौर पे किसी चीज़ को फैसला कर सकते हैं जब वो एक ही आदमी के अंदर आप सारी की सारी अथॉरिटी वो जमा कर रहे होते हैं तो then number 5 is the importance of associations. Pluralists pluralists are those people who actually defend the population, the the subjects of the state, जो किसी एक खास the people लोगों को जो बेसिकली डिफेंड कर रहे होते हैं उन वो कहते हैं कि लोगों को ज़्यादा अहमियत मिलनी चाहिए. Criticize the paramount of state claiming strong central authority. On the other hand, they want to secure maximum independence of association. कि सेंट्रल जो एक अथॉरिटी वो इतनी ज़्यादा जो आप पावरफुल उसको ताकतवर बना रहे हैं ये तो लोगों के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा मुश्किल हो जाएगी. इससे बेहतर ये है कि मैक्सिमम इंडिपेंडेंस ऑफ एसोसिएशन होनी चाहिए कि जितने भी लोग इज्तमाही तौर पे जो उनकी जमात जो उनका ग्रुप वो अपने तौर पे बनाते हैं उनको आप ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा सिक्योर करें, लोगों को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा आप मौका दें एक स्टेट के अंदर अपनी बात करने का और अपने जो उनके राइट्स हैं उनको उनके लिए खड़ा होने का या उनको हासिल करने का. Such views are harmful from the national point of view as these undermine patriotism and reduce the state to status of mere association. तो बेसिकली अगर ऐसे व्यूज़ जितने भी हैं वो सारे के सारे अगर हम उनको नेशनल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखें तो वो पेट्रियटिज्म को अंडरमाइन करते हैं एंड रिड्यूस द स्टेट टू स्टेटस ऑफ मेयर एसोसिएशन. तो स्टेट अगर स्टेट के पास अथॉरिटी नहीं होगी स्टेट के पास पावर नहीं होगी तो स्टेट का भी दर्जा वो है ऐसा ही हो जाएगा जैसे कोई एक एसोसिएशन है. तो it is necessary that state must hold all the authority and all the power, and such views which are criticized here by different schools they are not you know encouraged here. Number 6 is the nature of law. Aston defined law strictly in legal sense and regarded coercion as the basis of law. Like the legal sovereign, it has the coercive power to enforce the laws. And a sovereign in such societies cannot afford to issue a command which violates the customary ways of life. And in 18th century, the state sovereignty was identified with the sovereignty of government. It means that there was no difference between the state sovereignty and the government sovereignty. Whoever was the ruler, who was and he was regarded to be the repository of the supreme authority. So who was in the power? He was the repository of the sovereignty or the supreme authority. State sovereignty and internationalism, and as we are living in a globalized world, so in the age of internationalism the external aspect of sovereignty cannot be interpreted in those terms as understood in a self-sufficient age. So every state is dependent on other and it's a complex interdependence, so no state can live in isolation. So at present, no state can remain indifferent to worldwide trends and make policies in isolation from its external environments. So there are multiple policies and multiple environments, external environment. It impacts on the domestic policies as well. So the economic policy, it it is an integrated economy. So definitely a policy made by America, it will have an impact on the economy of Pakistan. So what is their defense policy? What is the human rights issues and human rights policy? So definitely we cannot live in isolation, and it's not a self-sufficient age. So that's why we are uh, facing a complex interdependence. So that's all for today. So if you have any query, you can ask or you can email me at gmnoorani@aol.com.